I want you to think back to when you were maybe 8, 9, or 10 years old. What was the biggest excitement that you had in your morning? Like, picture it, say it was a Saturday morning, there was no school, the sun was shining, streaming in through your window, and the first thing that you thought of when you got up. Maybe it was the plans that you had made the day before at school with your friends, what you were going to do on the weekend, what you're going to do on your Saturday when you didn't have to do any other chores. Maybe it was going for a bike ride in the woods. Maybe it was building a fort. Maybe it was hanging out in somebody's treehouse. Hi, my name is Jen, and if you're new here, I am the author and the creator of the Treehouse Principle. This is a book that I have titled The Treehouse Principle. It's all about cracking crisis codes and activating creative modes. If you've been following along for a little while, then you know a little bit about what my work entails. I talk a lot about how crisis can crack us open. And in fact, one of my podcast episodes was all about how we can interrupt the crisis loop. But I do want to talk about the importance of tapping into our imagination as adults. So when we were kids, it was effortless. So when I was telling you to kind of think back as to when you were like 8 or 9, 10 years of age, when you were just like, you could not wait to get out of bed because you had made all these plans. You had imagined these plans even before you made them. There is something unique about that childlike wonder and play and imagination and the effortlessness of it that we have not been able to tap back into as adults. It's just something that I feel very called to do to help people come back into their imaginative state like we did have as kids. Our imagination is one of our highest mental faculties. It comes along with wisdom, intuition, a whole other myriad of amazing mental attributes. And in fact, Einstein is quoted as saying, if you want your kids to be smart, read them fairy tales. There is something unique about tapping into our imagination and creating beyond crisis, but also, more importantly, creating again. And I think when we are kids, we have this very unique approach to our day. We have this unique approach to creativity, and we don't question it. We don't worry about it in that way that we do as adults. However, sometimes when we were a kid, there might have been a situation we had come up against where either our imagination was suppressed or our creativity was asked to be put aside. That is what I am stating against. And like, that is basically what I'm fighting against in this journey back to ourselves is you just got told to put your imagination away because it was childish. But that's not true. It's one of our most powerful creative applications, one of our most powerful attributes that we have as human beings is imagination and visualization. Think about this. When the Wright brothers were thinking about building an airplane, they didn't understand how. They didn't understand the what, the why, the reasons behind. They didn't understand all of the things that were needed to build that plane necessarily, but they believed in the physics aspect. They believed in the possibility, and they believed in their imagination. And therefore, yes, they attempted several attempts to create this particular, some of the first airplanes, but they got there. Look at how we travel today now. It's one of those things that I think we sometimes maybe take for granted as well, is this idea that imagination is fluff and that it really isn't for everyone. And this is where I'll say, I'm going to kibosh that now. It's for everyone. But especially once you have come the other side of trauma, crisis, what have you, when you are learning to pick up that rubble again and you want to create, You want to create a new reality for yourself. You want to figure out what that new normal is going to look like. And you want to start to get excited again about what might come next. I think a lot of us haven't been taught that we get to create what comes next. And that was something that I tapped into. I am a 2-time cancer journeyer, as you may have learned from some of my previous videos and some of my work. And that was definitely something that was a showstopper for me. It truly changed my entire makeup. I used to be a lot more social back in those days. I used to have a lot more confidence back in those days. Then when that cracked me open, it stripped away a lot of those layers, and I had to rebuild some of that. I also had to tap into what does Jen Farr want going forward? What does Jen Farr want to be in the world, and how does she want to show up differently? So this might be some of the questions that you're asking yourself. How do you want to show up differently in the world? But not just for others. I want to say for yourself, because now is the opportunity for you to be able to say, I'm no longer playing small. I am no longer going by the book. I am starting to step out into the unknown. And that is scary. The unpredictability is scary. And we are not wired for stepping out into the unknown. We are wired for safety and predictability. And predictability is safe. So your brain will be going a million miles a minute telling you why this is scary and this is not something that it's used to. So this is where we have the opportunity to tap into our intuition and that inner guidance system that tells us where we could start to go, who we might be able to talk to, who could lead us into the direction that we're curious about next. But that's the thing. There's this opportunity for you to start getting curious about what you want, what maybe is coming up for you that didn't before, or that you had set aside for a time. And then this particular crisis came in and shook you up. So again, as I've said, crisis cracks us open, but it can also be the catalyst for change. We have an opportunity to get curious when those times come to see what we want to truly tap into next. And this is where imagination comes in. Imagination gives us this opportunity to truly envision what we want for our lives. And this could be anything. It could be that you've decided that you might want to write a book, or you've been thinking about writing a book for years and years and years, and you sat on it. Because the narratives, the brain, the negative Nellies that I would talk about, the negative Nelly narratives in your brain were trying to protect you, keeping you staying safe and playing small. But that's got to change. This is where I say, let's step up, let's step out, let's step up, and let's step in to the identity of the person and the version of the person that you want to be beyond all of that. So this is where it's your call to action to be able to truly take stock of that individual that has been kind of sitting inside of you for so long. And maybe this particular crisis started to unveil some of the things that maybe lay dormant for a very long time. Some of them, yes, need to be addressed and needed to be released. So I have a 3-part framework that I've talked about before: Reveal, Release, Redefine. So I talk a lot about how we need to reveal sometimes some of the old narratives or the old stories that we were stuck in for decades potentially. And also some of the belief systems that we grew up in. Our environment has shaped a lot of who we became. So especially as children, we, when our imagination is suppressed and our creativity is made to feel like it's nonsense and it's just not meant for the real world, of course you're going to put that away. If you were the kid that got sent to the hallway in your desk and you were fiddling and maybe chatting and drawing outside of the lines, I see you. I see you. And I'm here to say it's time to start drawing out of the lines a lot more. We have this opportunity now, and I think there's a big shakeup that's happening in this world. So I know I'm not the only one. I've been seeing other YouTubers talk about this, but I'm also seeing it in conversations amongst my close friends. There is a big shakeup in the world today. We are in a global crisis again, unfortunately. I would say I think that one of the biggest opportunities we have today is to figure out what we want our not only ourselves to look like and how we want ourselves to operate in the world, but how we want to operate with others, how we want to have community with others, the relationships we want to continue to have and foster. Those are extremely important, because this is where I'll say it's important to set your boundaries too when it comes to moving forward into this new creative identity that you are looking to move into. And that does come with a little bit of grief. Now, I'm touching on a lot of, like a whole bunch of different subjects in this video, but really what I wanted to do was bring you back into this getting curious state about what you truly could create for yourself going forward, and understanding that your imagination is one of the most powerful tools in your toolkit. So I would definitely recommend starting to get into that momentum, the curiosity mindset. Write things down, journal. Even if you don't have a journal, and I, like myself, I tend to be more digital, so I sometimes just plunk it out in a Word doc for myself, or a spreadsheet maybe. Either way, it's crucial right now, I think, when we are looking to redefine what we want our reality to look like going forward. It's crucial that we allow ourselves this space to soften and listen and lean in and get curious. What are the things that are coming up intuitively? So lean into that intuition. What is your intuition saying to you? What are the things that are feeling heavy right now that might need to be released from your life? Because when you want to step forward and you know that these things no longer are, feeling easy and feeling fun, whether that be a job or an environment, or, a particular series of friendships, perhaps. These are the times when it's important to look at what you want for your life going forward, and the effortless, the flow, the ease that you want in your life. It is possible. And I'm going to tell you, burnout culture, sorry, no more. Let's literally put a cap on that, because that type of energy has to stop. No wonder we're feeling burnt out. No wonder we're feeling overwhelmed, because we continue to live in this world where we're conditioned to think that rest has to be earned. And I am going to put that puppy to bed right now. I'm here to tell you, as a 2-time cancer journeyer, and then also navigating other crises that we've been through as a family, there is nothing more important than taking time out for yourself. I have said this before as well. If you don't take a time out for yourself, your body will put you on a timeout. And I am living proof of that one. So I also have another video that I talk about pivot versus punish. So when, if you're trying to get back into, you're trying to get back into exercise, healthy body, healthy mind, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Sometimes, though, when we've gone through something like cancer, or we've gone through various other crises, it can show up differently in our bodies. And our bodies are starting to say, it's time for rest. We need this rest right now. So, there's another thing I talk about in my book called the nervous system safe mode. And that is something as well that I will touch on very briefly right now, because I'll probably create a whole other video on that. But if you are starting to question, why are you so tired all the time? Why are you feeling like you don't want to go out on a Friday night and have drinks with the girls? That's okay. That's okay. That's your nervous system saying, I need rest. I need regulation. I need a reset. I can't do this anymore. This is too much for me. You need to take time so that you can restore, refresh, and then you can go out the next Friday or what have you. But This is where you have the opportunity to set your boundaries and be clear, be very intentional with your time. That's extremely important as you're going through this. So, again, I'm going to wrap this back into the imagination piece before I close out the video, but I want you to get curious. I want you to think about that, 8, 9, 10-year-old self. What would you have done that Saturday morning? Picture that morning. What would you have planned? And I want you to start thinking about what you might want to do for your next Saturday morning or your next Wednesday morning, whatever. I think it's really important that we move this into the weekday as well. This type of energy, the Saturday morning vibes, need to show up also on a Monday. They need to show up through our entire week because we owe it to ourselves to have fun again. We owe it to ourselves to tap back into play and wonder and get curious about the next steps. I'll leave that with you today to think about and resonate on. But I want you to take a look at the little video that I created for you as well, just around the strawberry full moon. It's just a short little vlog where I talk about the art of noticing and observing little details that are magical and that we often take for granted. It's important to take those times out to notice subtle little things like fireflies in a summer night. All of these things that we sometimes take for granted that we should be able to express our gratitude for. That's where the curious mind starts to become less chaotic, less critical, and more creative. That's all for today. We'll see you in the next one.